the way that culture is, traditionalized in America.
Men typically tend to be on the more extreme side. So there's more genius men, right, than women, but there's also more men than women. So we dominate both spectrums of the side of the
Wait. Say that.
equation.
Can you say that one more time? There's more genius men and more men.
Yeah. So we dominate both sides. So most geniuses are men.
Most geniuses are men. Okay.
Yes.
That's
but also on the negative side, most are also men.
So where do you think the women fall in that equation?
They're kind of a little bit more in the middle or so.
They're just like
they're kind of more in the middle. But what I'm trying to tell you is that the people that push the needle for society are the geniuses, and those are the men.
I mean, I guess, but I don't.
I think what Myron is trying to say is that the mediocrity of our society comes from the women, and that the geniuses of men are oftentimes split completely. So where that if you were a mediocre man, you'll be compared to a woman. And so therefore your womanhood or your femininity is oftentimes associated with inferiority because you're either a complete moron, which would now be the labor force or the simplistic people, or you would be one of the people that of which are associated with the pure geniuses of the richest of society, leading one of the greatest inventions or one of the wealthiest people on the planet. And if you fall toward the middle where you're mediocre, you will now be seen as a woman, which in the perspective of a patriarchy or the misogynist would oftentimes be at the bottom, because now the most simple men are the labor, and most labor is conducted by men, labor is needed, and the people who lead are the ones that are which are intelligent enough to make the money and exploit people. But the women are oftentimes the ones waiting to pick either the laborer or the man who which is leading. And of course, what this gentleman here is trying to discuss against Myron is discussing exactly that if you're traditional and you're putting a culture of tradition, you are waiting to be picked by either the labor or the people of which are leading. Now, oftentimes, a lot of people misassociate this with inferiority. However, it is forced upon the women and the men that are in the mediocre sphere, because the mediocre sphere is now consistent with what he would call simp men or soy boys, or men of which respect women. And if you respect a woman, you must be a moron. But geniuses respect women, and laborers respect women, and people who are mediocre are still there. And he claims it's the smallest number of men, but they're still in the mediocre lane, which is still respecting women, which of course takes a lot of discussion and understanding of how the hierarchies that were here in place oftentimes intentionally teamed up on women 10 to 1 or 100 to 1 woman just to make sure that she was dumb or she would not get the proper conclusion in order to sabotage her in her teachings and understandings of her reality, which of course her reality is going to be subjugated to a lot of these men's oppression and pushing her down to a position of which they deem as acceptable and not one she deems as acceptable.
I don't